Hello and welcome to this week's Politics Today. And in this programme today, we'll be asking why is the island of Jersey, which is in the Channel Islands, looking to overthrow its existing abortion legislation? And we'll be asking what does this mean for the unborn child in Jersey? And in this programme today, I am joined by Michael Omoniyi, who is the CEO of Common Sense Network, and also Dave Brennan from Brephos. So warm welcome to the programme. I'll start off with you, Dave. It's great to have you back on the programme. It's always a pleasure to hear what you have to say, and you are so passionate about the issue of abortion. So we bless you and we thank you for the excellent work that you do. But please share with our viewers what Brephos is and give us an update on the important ministry as you are educating the church about the dangers of abortion.
Yeah, thanks so much, Simon. Great to be back on the show. Thank you. Yeah, Brephos is a ministry to help churches respond to abortion, chiefly through teaching. So most of the Christians I meet in this country have never heard biblical teaching on abortion. Their churches just don't talk about it. So we exist to help that teaching to happen, whether that's through one of our speakers. We've got a team of speakers right across the UK, from Aberdeen down to Cornwall. So whoever's listening to this, if you're in the UK, hopefully there is a speaker, a Brephos speaker within an hour or two of you. But we also provide resources for pastors to teach themselves. We've got a podcast, various ways of just trying to get this issue before the people of God so we can think aright on this vital issue.
Excellent. And Mike, making your debut on Politics Today, for our viewers watching, we had a special encounter on the shores of Galilee. And if you meet anyone on the shores of Galilee, you know this is a God thing. You also know it's a good thing as well. So share with us, Dave, something about your Christian Nigerian heritage, how you came to faith in the Lord Jesus Christ, but also tell us about Common Sense Network, because the Lord's really led you in that whole sphere of media.
Yeah, thanks, Simon Davis. It's great to be here and talking about this very important issue. I got saved at 13 in a church in Southeast London. I grew up, I would say, a cultural atheist. Even though I was 13, I had read Sam Harris and was familiar with Richard Dawkins and, you know, sort of the new atheism movement. So I was really drawn to faith by sort of engaging intellectually with arguments about God. He then touched my heart. I became new and I just followed him. And then when I was sort of in university, I was studying philosophy, however, well, PPE. But then, you know, I started noticing how divided we all were. So you remember Brexit, remember Trump, lots of division. And I thought, why isn't there a space for people who disagree to actually come together, right? Later on, I found language for this, of course, because God has called everyone and all of us to this ministry of reconciliation. And I like to think about it in two ways. There is sort of vertical reconciliation, which is us and God. And then there's this horizontal reconciliation, which is bringing people who disagree together. So we started the Common Sense Network with that idea of, can we create a network where right-wing people, left-wing people, people who have different perspectives can come together, learn from each other, and sort of, you know, have a functioning democracy, if you like. So this issue of abortion, of course, sits in the center of that, because you're going to find people passionate on either side. I work with very left-wing folks, very right-wing folk, and my job is always, how do you bring people together to understand each other in order to find change and stuff like that?
In our broken politics, we really need that, particularly in our society as well. So great to hear from you, Mike. And Dave, you just come back from Jersey. Do you want to just unpack for us the proposals that the legislators in Jersey are trying to implement to overhaul their existing abortion legislation, and what they're proposing?
Yeah, thank you. So viewers may not be aware that Jersey is a crown dependency, which means it is under the monarchy, it's under the king, but it doesn't sit under the British Parliament. They have their own parliament, and so they make their own laws. They're really quite autonomous in many ways. And so they have their own abortion law. So the current abortion law from 1997 essentially is more conservative than ours. It permits abortion only up to 12 weeks, on grounds of distress, as they put it here. That's kind of the equivalent of our mental health clause. So effectively, I mean, it's still pretty bad. Effectively, that's abortion on demand in practice, up to 12 weeks. But currently, beyond that, it only happens for extreme situations, like a medical emergency, for example. Now, what they're looking to do is radically expand that provision up to 21 weeks and 6 days, and they're actually removing even the pretense of there having to be a reason, distress or mental health. It's just literally on request, which means anyone who's pregnant up to 21 weeks and 6 days can just go to their GP and say, I want an abortion, and that's it. It's a done deal, even at that very late stage. And of course, by then, the mother is showing as pregnant, the heart starts beating at 3 weeks, the fingerprint at 10 weeks. This is really developed, but even up till then, just on request, that's what they want to do, abortion on demand.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Mike, just share with us your perspective on abortion, because as you said earlier, this is a very kind of toxic issue. It's been hijacked by the political left, so there is no kind of open space to debate this issue. And of course, then we see, for example, happens in the United States, and we see what the Supreme Court has done by virtually eroding Roe versus Wade, which is the federal state legislation regarding abortion, and now it's up to the states to decide in the states. So in America, there is a lot more freedom to discuss this issue. But share with us from your perspective on abortion and why this debate is so toxic.
Yeah, I mean, so we do a lot of work in college campuses, so we actually get to hear from young people on this issue, what they think, what they believe. And, I think abortion is obviously a moral, ethical, and I think a spiritual issue. But I think in the UK, it's often treated as like political shorthand for fidelity to like the progressive ideology. So genuine moral reflection is sort of replaced by slogans and pressure to conform. And from all the work we do with young Christians, we find that they feel shut out of the debate because in the public square, dissent is treated as hostility. If you say, actually, I have a different perspective on this, you're very quickly screened out. And so to your point, in the US, there's freedom of speech. It's covered under the Constitution. Folks can share their views freely. But I think young people are often scared because if they question the consensus, they can be shut down very quickly, right? And they can be ostracized. So genuine conversations we need to have about the dignity of the unborn life, circumstances that women are put in and how to support them. Those important discussions never happen because essentially there's no space for it. Now I say in the wake of this, young Christians need to speak up with wisdom, with humility, with courage, but they also need to feel as though in a Christian country they can share their Christian beliefs without feeling as though there's no space for it.
Absolutely. And Dave, would you just compare and contrast the proposed legislation in Jersey regarding abortion to that of the mainland, the rest of the UK, and how they differ?
Yeah, so what's quite interesting about these crown dependencies, I mean, some 8 years ago, I was in the Isle of Man, very similar situation taking place. Another crown dependency, got its own parliament. Now, traditionally, these places have actually been more conservative in all sorts of ways, almost stylistically, politically, morally. But what's happened, as we see all around the world, is there's the so-called progressive, I refer to it as regressive, but that agenda finds the vulnerable places where it can advance quite rapidly. So the Isle of Man, for example, leapfrogged our abortion agenda and went to one of the most extreme regimes in the world. Here in GB, in England and Wales, we've got a very permissive abortion. It's a lot more permissive than the rest of Europe. It's effectively abortion on demand up to 24 weeks, but there is, in theory, there is a safeguard which is only in the case of mental health. We all know in practice it's on demand. So currently, Jersey is more conservative, but if this change goes through, in some senses, it will be a more extreme abortion law than ours because it's officially on request. And that's a big stepping stone towards what they really want. The abortion industry wants abortion on demand up till birth. You don't even have to give a reason, just as if it's like choosing to have your tooth out or get some cosmetic surgery done. That's what they want it to be, right up to birth, completely taken out of the criminal code. We see that with the current push in England and Wales for abortion decriminalisation up to birth. MPs voted on that. I think we talked about that last time.
We did, yeah.
But also in Scotland, which is, again, a different law, just recently they've been talking about decriminalising abortion there as well. So there's an onslaught right across the British Isles to get abortion up to birth for any reason.
It's beyond horrific,
It is.
beyond evil. And Mike, kind of technical question for you. Tell us about the saving grace with this proposed island legislation in Jersey that women seeking abortion beyond 12 to 13 weeks will not be available on the island due to workforce constraints, as it says here, but they have to travel outside of the island and actually pay for the procedures themselves. When there's practical hurdles in the way, show this how this gives vulnerable women more time to think whether they want to have an abortion or not. And this is what we really want, and this is what we're asking, is that pregnant women are thinking about aborting their child just to think, just reflect before they carry out a termination.
Yeah, I mean, those natural pause points are really important, right? Because a lot of decisions about abortion often are made under duress, under pressure. So any pause point that people can have to really just consider, is this really what I want to do? Do I understand what's happening here? Am I being forced to make this decision? I've spoken to people actually on the phone who are considering having abortions, and sometimes you can hear the panic in their voice. You can hear the fact that they feel like they have no options at all. Maybe they're young and they're thinking, I can barely look after myself. We all know the stories. So it's important for those people not to see this as a sort of punitive restriction, but actually it's about slowing down the decision-making process so people actually have time to think before they make a under duress decision that's irreversible. Like when you terminate a pregnancy, I mean that's it, and it's something that lives with you for a long, long time. I mean, I know we may get onto this, but the grief process. I'm currently in the grief process. It's not linear at all. It's often cyclical. It goes and it comes back, and so before you make such a monumental decision, which I think the folks are trying to pin it as though it's just a flippant thing, you need to consider. And I think as many pause points as you can have as possible, the better.
Absolutely. And Dave, tell us how this legislators in Jersey also wanting to put in buffer zones. So again, we're copying the rest of the UK, whether it's England or Scotland or Wales, by having a buffer zone so there can be no protests outside these abortion clinics. And share with us what that will mean for the unborn child, and also for the pregnant woman who's not sure about whether they're having abortion or not. There is no alternative or no one to speak to regarding that, and then straight into the abortion clinic and straight termination.
Yeah, I mean, it would be ridiculous if it weren't so tragic. I mean, no doubt, Michael, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe this is what philosophers refer to as begging the question. Okay, so they have decided that any kind of pro-life presence anywhere near a clinic is going to be harassment, intimidation, shouting at people, rugby tackling people. That hasn't happened in England and Wales and Scotland, where they've already introduced these buffer zones. And in Jersey, as far as I'm aware, there hasn't been any pro-life activity at all outside the abortion facilities there. And yet they're acting as if this is some crisis of harassment they need to create special laws for. But we know what it's really about. It's about getting all life-affirming support and prayer away from the place where it's needed most, because they know that pro-life activity, completely peaceful, respectful pro-life activity outside those clinics, saves babies from abortion. Hundreds a year it used to be, but now in England and Wales it's illegal to go anywhere near those clinics. So that's why the industry doesn't like pro-life presence. It's not because there's harassment or intimidation. There are already laws stopping that. It's because they don't like the fact that it gives, as Mike was saying, those ladies a chance, a pause to think again. And sometimes, many of the women we speak with, they say, I just needed one person to say to me, you can do this. You're going to be a great mum. That's enough to save a life, and that's what the abortion industry doesn't want to happen.
Absolutely. I'm talking about these buffer zones. They're highly contentious, and we know that the Trump administration is very concerned about them, because in a democratic country, we should have the right to freedom of speech and freedom of assembly and freedom of expression. And we know that many prominent Christians have been arrested under this government from just having a placard outside of abortion clinic, and then finding that they've been arrested. Just share with us how this is causing huge alarm in the White House, particularly with the Vice President, J.D. Vance, who's very concerned about this and has spoken up on this on a number of times. Share with us how our current government continues in this direction. This is only going to increase that tension in the special relationship between the Trump administration and the Starmer Labour government.
Yeah, I love when we mention the special relationship. It's becoming more and more nebulous as time goes on. Who knows what that means anymore these days? I do think, though, this calls for some, I suppose, humility, because I think the concern around harassment is founded, right? I have seen some stories. I've seen some people who, what I've seen them doing outside clinics is borderline harassment, right? However, to just say that's everybody who has a pro-life stance or wants to sort of offer a pause point to these people considering these life-altering, sometimes, frankly, irreversible decisions, it is not fair. And this is where we have sort of unintended consequences with policy. So this is meant to kind of sort of prevent harassment, but what it's actually doing is condemning simple things that you should be allowed to do in this country, like pray, like offering prayer. To criminalize things like that is I can't say the word that I really want to say. So I think balance is really needed here, and that we need to, yes, protect people from harassment, but we can't criminalize peaceful conversations, silent presence, offering people this sort of pause point we're speaking about. I don't have the right solution here, but I do think a law designed to prevent harassment may actually have the real life implications, as it actually stops people from just expressing their faith solemnly, which I keep saying, we're in a Christian country. You should be allowed to offer people prayer and a pause point to say, are you sure you want to do this? This is irreversible. And are you sure there are no other options? I think when we're considering something like abortion, there should be an opportunity to have a presence there.
No, absolutely. And again, this is very much like Big Brother, George Orwell's 1984 with the thought police. And if you get arrested for praying in your head, how can you prove that a person's praying in the first instance? And clearly the prayers are working because they're scared of them. Yeah, Dave, a technical question for you, what's happening in Jersey. So what impact with the proposed change in the law in Jersey that you currently need to consult 2 doctors before having an abortion, but the new law states that all is needed would be a medical professional, either a nurse or a midwife, to approve the abortion. Tell us the kind of medical impact this will be having on women, particularly those who are having complications regarding a termination or abortion.
Yeah, well, the backstory to this is whispering into the government's ear, the government of Jersey, has been the British Pregnancy Advisory Service, BPAS, the main abortion provider in our country. Because of all the organisations the government of Jersey chose to consult and to pay, they paid £10,000 for this consultation, they chose a pro-abortion campaigner, an abortion provider who stands to gain financially if abortions increase on the island, BPAS. And BPAS wrote a report for the government, and I've read that report. I also read their quote for the work, and both really serve as propaganda pieces. And one of the key propaganda piece motifs which we see from BPAS and the industry worldwide is they want to reduce as much as possible these pause points. They want to reduce the number of people you have to speak to. Now, BPAS would actually have it more extreme than the government of Jersey is looking to go. They'd say, don't even consult at all. Just get on the phone and order your abortion pills and be done with it. That's what BPAS wants. And so what we see is the government of Jersey is walking some way towards BPAS's utopia, which is abortion on demand, over the counter, just like paracetamol. You don't have to talk to anyone. You don't even have to have a human involved. They just want it on like a vending machine. Okay, that's what BPAS wants. And the government of Jersey is going radically closer to that end goal by saying you don't have to consult with 2, you only have to consult with 1.
But also share with us how there must be some kind of radicals within the Jersey legislative setup or legislators who are really desperate to push this through.
Well, of course they are. So the Minister for Health there, Tom Binney, he has ostensibly consulted the public. There have been 2 phases of consultation and this report, as I say, provided by BPAS. But what's quite striking is both individuals on Jersey and healthcare professionals on Jersey have expressed their concerns about this abortion law going so extreme. So less than half of respondents to this survey supported that change in law, going up to 21 weeks to 6 days. Even fewer support that decision for just 1 consultation rather than 2. Again, especially amongst the healthcare professionals. So what we're seeing is the people of Jersey are saying, slow down, this is extreme. But Tom Binney isn't interested and he's trying to plough on anyway. So he's clearly ideologically captivated. And in fact, he even says in his draft law that he wants to legislate for abortions that can't even be provided safely on the island yet because he wants to send out a message. It's all about destigmatizing abortion and normalizing it. So really, he's using this law as a bit of a propaganda campaign himself, trying to tell us all how to think, rather than even what's good for women's health. Because if you legislate something you can't safely provide, what sort of temptations or loopholes might that start opening up? So yeah, that there are definitely some ideologues in the government who are trying to push this forward.
And Mike, for any progressive liberals that are watching this program, for any feminists watching this program, they would be alarmed at three men discussing the issue of abortion. Sorry, ladies. But also the other fact linked to this, isn't it important really that men speak up on this issue? It's not a female-only issue, and it's not about this is my body, I will do what I want with it, body sovereignty. But again, this is actual life. We're talking about a life. And also in the abortion issue and this whole issue, men are kind of pretty much neglected because they also bear huge responsibility for a pregnancy as well. So it doesn't happen any other way. So share with us, to counter those arguments put out by the feminist and the progressive.
Yeah, I'm glad you acknowledged. I mentioned it to you. The sort of three men sort of pontificating here and speaking. But it's important we recognise some simple facts. Men are part of every pregnancy. That's at least for now. Like we are part of every pregnancy. And I think silence, to your point, silence from men often leaves women feeling like they're facing these impossible decisions alone. And I think many women, and some that I've spoken to, regret abortions, and they always say they wished men had spoken up and maybe offered more support when they were making decisions. And I think if men stay silent on this issue, we basically allow them to abscond responsibility, accountability, and the moral leadership I think God expects from men, they basically vacate. So because of how important abortion is for the baby being aborted, but also for the woman, but also for the culture, for their families, the ripples of effects that it kind of sends out across generations, I think men have to have a word. They have to have a stance in this. And the fear historically is because I think some women have always felt like men sort of exercised undue control. But I think we have to rephrase that, and men have to think about this as this is a chance for them to show compassion, for them to show support, but also for them to take responsibility about the consequences of their action, right? So every man, I think, has a right, really, and I would go further and say a duty to make their voices heard, but it's important not to do in a way that's sort of controlling and sort of not to commandeer a woman's body, to respect her autonomy, but absolutely to make it known that I'm also a part of this pregnancy. Men are part of pregnancies, and therefore we deserve to have our voices heard as well.
Absolutely. So we've got about 4 minutes left of the programme. So Dave, on a compassionate ground, if we have any women watching who've had a pregnancy, and this often comes up, and they're Christians, and they're left with this horrible sense of guilt over an abortion, share how there's true healing in the blood of Jesus, and that Jesus has forgiven them of their sins, and they don't need to worry anymore because they know their little one is in heaven with the Lord Jesus Christ.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I just want to say that to any listeners. I know so many women who have been in this situation and they've had abortions. It's affected them deeply. Some fallen into addictions, relationship breakdown. The catastrophic effects can multiply, but so many of these women I know have come to know the fullness of forgiveness and healing in Christ. And I just want to commend to you the Post-Abortion Support for Everyone Ministry, PASE, wonderful recovery course. And in fact, one of our responses to Jersey is we're publishing 10 stories of ladies who had abortions in the UK, but came to know the forgiveness and healing of Christ. And it's a wonderful encouragement that, the gospel is big enough for this issue. Grace is sufficient for you.
Amen. And very quickly, Dave, what has been the response of Christians on the island on Jersey to this newly proposed legislation to overhaul the existing abortion laws on the island?
Well, it's been really encouraging for me because I was invited over there by a small church, and just finding all these Christians wanting to get involved, both feet in straight away. So there's a real heart for action on the island, and I'm having a call tonight actually with them to try and foster this new team and get things going. And what we're building towards is actually a heartbeat bill. That's what we want to get going on the island. Right at the other end of things, say no, from the moment there's a baby's heartbeat, that baby should be protected. A massive incremental step towards the final goal. And that's something as well people should be aware of in this country, the heartbeatbill.co.uk.
Excellent. And Mike, how do we reframe this argument and this whole discussion around abortion, whereby Christians are mobilised? Because sadly, so many churches don't speak up on the issue of abortion. They're silent. And of course, when we're seeing what happens with abortion is the dramatic impact that it has on the lives of women, but also what it does spiritually to our nation, because the shedding of innocent blood brings a curse from God upon our land. And so therefore we are living in a curse, and we have done ever since this Abortion Act was implemented back in 1967. And if we want a spiritual transformation of our nation, then one of the things we have to do is overhaul our abortion laws.
Yeah, I think sort of, it can feel very big when you consider like laws and systems and stuff like that. And a lot of Christians discount themselves when they consider the sheer force of like a system. But nominally and sort of as an individual, I think Christians need to model truth and compassion,
Amen.
which I think is how Jesus walked, right? So you've got to maintain your Christian convictions, but do so compassionately, recognizing that a lot of people are swimming through very difficult situations when they make these decisions. So I think we have to teach, especially young people, to engage charitably, to stay informed, to know, sort of the data, and to resist sort of the spirit of the age, to resist sort of shouting matches online that sort of caricature both sides. So this is one of the work I want to do, right, is to mobilize the next generation, to build a space where someone can confess that I'm having this thought. How beautiful would it be if someone could say, I'm having this thought, I'm struggling here, I need help, and reach out a hand, and they've got a community that can meet them and help them. I think modeling that sort of compassion wrapped in truth is going to be super important.
Excellent. So, Dave and Mike, thank you so much for being this week's guests on Politics Day. You've both done a superb job, so thank you so much. And I want to thank you for watching this programme at home. If you are living on the island of Jersey, then this is your opportunity to speak up against this proposed legislation to overhaul the island's abortion laws. But this is an issue that the church need to speak up on. This is something that they need to pray about and also teach from the pulpits that life is precious. The sanctity of life is precious. And so these unborn children need to be protected, but not only for the sake of the baby, but also for the sake of our future population and society, because we know that abortion is the shedding of innocent blood, and that provokes a curse from the Lord. So this is something that we need to counter, and men also need to speak up on this issue. So thank you for watching today's Politics Today.